What are missions in Imperator Rome? If you've been looking through your UI in Imperator Rome, you certainly found the missions button down at the bottom of your UI here. If you click on it, you'll get either one or a list of missions depending on who you're playing and what you own. But what are these missions? Well, missions are trees of objectives, essentially. Not all of which, by the way, are required to actually complete them. Once you start a mission, you cannot stop it without certain penalties. In order to start one, you will select one from your list that can expand down this far, and click Start Mission. This is what the tree looks like. You can zoom in and out and look all around it. It uses basically the same UI as the tech tree. You can abort mission down here, but like I said, there will be penalties. Sometimes those penalties include stability hits. In this case, it's not saying that, it only shows that we will not be able to try the mission again till at least 20 years have passed in-game, which is quite a substantial amount of time given the relatively small scope of covering, I believe, the second half of the Roman Republic that this game covers. You start from the top of a mission tree generally, and you want to follow the direction the arrows go to let you know how certain objectives will proceed through the mission. There will be sometimes multiple different paths leading to the bottom, but usually only one bottom area of objectives will be needed to actually finish a mission. And if you hover over finish mission, if you can't already finish it, it will actually tell you what you need to complete in order to complete your given mission. The mission that we have in front of us looking at Rome is actually pretty simplistic. You have one main objective that proceeds down into other objectives that, for the most part, lead down here. Now, as we can see, by hovering over, say, Roman hegemony and Italic citizenship, these are two different ways to end this mission tree, you see if I select one, the other one, the statue kind of crumbles into ruin. That is because if I pick one, I cannot pick the other. You can also see it up top. If I select Pan-Italic Congress, I can no longer select Destroy Italian Allies. These two are not connected to the tree, by the way, just like End the Etruscans doesn't lead down to the bottom. Additionally, Adriatic Opportunities and Approach the Greeks also don't lead to the bottom, meaning these are not actually necessary to reach the bottom. When you do hover over, you will get way more information on what you need to complete before you do something and what the effects of every single mission will be before you click it to finish it. Once you do meet the obligations for a mission, by the way, objective, you can just click and it will start that. This one has a bar. This little bar indicates that it has a timer. Usually a timer is only about a year, but you can actually just hover over it and get that timetable shown to you. These objectives that have bars usually, but not always, are starters. And then over the next year or so, events will pop up progressing this or happening based on a chance that you'll want to respond to, events that pop up in the center of your screen. The ones that don't have a timer are usually one and done, and a lot of them, most of them, will actually be things that you can click on once you've already completed an objective rather than something that starts a series of events that leads to the objectives. If you're questioning if these missions are mandatory or worth doing, well, they're definitely not mandatory, and you can get from the beginning to the end of the game without doing any of them. However, they are generally always worth doing. Not necessarily always worth doing over doing other things, but that really depends on who you're playing and what you have. And so now let's discuss that. What mission trees will you have access to? So I'm going to abort this mission, and there's no missions currently available to me, but let me load up something else to show you more of what you might see. So I've loaded over to Macedon, and we can see two more missions now. These are much different than the one that we just had available to us as Rome, and so let's talk about what missions you'll have available to you and how worth doing they are. So starting with the Roman one that we saw, that was actually a story mission. It's essentially a DLC, but it's free. Everyone that gets the game will have access to that story mission path. As well as, if you start as Carthage, you'll have similar story options, way more though, that you can pick from. These mission trees are what allow these two nations to be the most fleshed out in the game for what most players buying the game will be able to experience, because most players don't own DLC and most players don't have any mods. You can see that if you look at just any game, including this one, the purchase numbers as well as download numbers on certain things like mods and DLCs. And this is very relevant because aside from this one free DLC, which you'll just have by default when you get the game, that adds all these special missions, which are the best missions in the game generally, to Rome and Carthage, the only missions that you'll have access to that are not generic and essentially repeatable is going to be a Hellenic flavor pack. Or more specifically, Greek missions, because there's a Hellenic flavor DLC pack. If you are playing a small, unimportant Greek state in the grand scheme of things, you will have access to a special tree yourself that just comes with the base game. It's not a free DLC, it's just in the base game. Not that there should necessarily be a distinction between those, but that's just how it is. And then there's even more that are in DLCs. For example, there's a Magna Graecia pack that adds a bunch of missions for Syracuse, who would otherwise have their own missions in the Greek pack, but this will make it so that they can't use those, but they get the new one instead. Sparta would get access to some missions in that, as well as Athens. Then there's the Heirs of Alexander, which focus on nations like Macedon, Thrace, Egypt, etc. You'll note I don't have those because I've never owned any of the paid DLCs of this game, and very potentially I will never. But these generic missions do well enough for me. There's also the Epirus pack, which adds missions specifically for Epirus, and then beyond that, any other missions that are special and really worth doing that really help make certain nations more powerful than others by giving them more opportunities, just comes down to modding in mission packs or total overhaul mods. If you have any of these special mission trees that come with, say, the Greeks or the DLCs, be they free or paid, I would definitely recommend doing them. They are definitely worth doing, and they will give your nation an advantage that most other nations in the game simply don't have. Every other nation, however, will have primarily these two. You'll see the Matter of and the Pearl of missions for every other nation in the game, and even the nations that have special trees will still get these as well. And are they worth doing? They are. They are worth doing. Now that I've fixed up my map filters, you can go to, for example, the region map filter, because it's going to help explain these missions. If you don't know how to do that, by the way, just hit this little cogwheel and drag the symbol into where you need it. But if you go to the region map, this is important because these two generic mission types will always, all the generic mission types, be based out of these regions. The Matter of is, for example, Macedonia, right here. The Matter of Macedonia. That means, essentially, to take over Macedonia. This is a mission tree that will allow me to get claims and such to take over Macedonia. And it is dependent on what you own. As you expand, you'll get more Matter of missions for areas that you have territory in. The Matter of Thrace, the Matter of Moesia, etc., etc. The Pearl of is to build up. Now, you can build up your cities and etc. however you want, and I have a buildings guide to kind of go over how you should do that and what all the different things you can build up mean. But the Pearl of will ask you to do specific things, commonly build specific cities, fill them with specific buildings, and you will get a bunch of bonuses that are permanent and last for the entire game. Same thing with the Matter of Macedonia. It's the same thing, just different ways of getting it. Matter of Macedonia let you take stuff over, get permanent bonuses. Pearl of Macedonia let you build stuff in there, get permanent bonuses. And that's what makes it worth doing. Because some of the stuff you might not have otherwise wanted to do by yourself, but having done it, you get bonuses that make it all worthwhile. Now, the generic ones aren't always worth doing over something else. If you want to, say, make something into a metropolis, or you're trying to set up some defensive fortifications, or you want something else that you want to take over that's far away or something, then maybe ignoring these missions for a small time period is fine. But eventually, if you just have nothing else to do, Matter of missions are great for getting claims, and Pearl of missions are great for giving you somewhere to put your money, ways to build up all the territories that you've taken over, or your starting territory as well. They like to list out generally what they're going to have you do as well. For example, you could find it right here. The descriptions are generally pretty helpful. But again, those special missions, those are the best. However, that is missions. That is how they work. That is what missions there are. That is what you will find available to you based on what you own and what is in the base game. Hopefully you found this guide helpful and helps you understand missions, the mission trees, and why certain things may or may not be available to you, and etc. For now, though, that's going to be it for today. I hope to keep filling this playlist with more helpful guides on Imperator Rome, and if you haven't found the playlist, you can find it in the description below. For now, though, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.